Welcome to the Visceral Voice Podcast. I'm Christine Schneider, your host. Through this podcast, I aim to bring you the most current, up-to-date research on voice science, function, pain science, movement, and everything in between. I am on a quest to learn everything I can about the living, breathing body and its intricate connection to the voice. This podcast documents the continuation of my learning and my experience as a professional singer, a biomechanics specialist, and a manual therapist. Join us as we strive to provide current, knowledgeable, creative, and compassionate information to help you restore, regain, and create happiness and success on your vocal journey. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. I am ecstatic, and I will absolutely use the word ecstatic for the guest today, my dear friend and colleague, Craig Stasio. Craig is a physical therapist and educator specializing in integrative postural therapy and interdisciplinary collaboration between dentistry, airway, and movement-based postural care. His clinical work focuses on how patterned asymmetry, ground reaction forces, and neurosensory input influence craniofacial function, respiration, voice, and body mechanics. So you can see why I'm so ecstatic to have Craig on the podcast today. Craig lectures nationally to interdisciplinary audiences, helping clinicians and clients alike better understand the full body influences clients bring with them to their coaches, their doctors, and performance specialists. Craig, I am so excited to talk with you today. You know that I am such a Craig fan. And to the listeners, Craig is my friend. He's my colleague, but I absolutely view Craig as a dear mentor of mine, and certainly on the topic that we will be discussing some of today and on September 2nd. So Craig, welcome. Thank you so much for coming and chatting with me today on the podcast.
Thanks, Christine. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, my pleasure. Okay, so we're going to dive in. I want to know what led you to begin thinking more deeply about the airway and its relationship to the cranium and to the whole body.
Well, I think a lot of us that are really passionate about what we do, our passion is driven by usually a personal journey or the journey of a loved one that we care about and we want to help. And I'm both, but didn't know that until having children. But to start off for me, I'm somebody that has circumstances in my life that's caused my body to adapt, and sought a profession that allows me to study the whole body and the influences on the body, despite the fact that it's not necessarily taught that way in healthcare education. And so because of inconveniences that I had in my life that I learned later were relatable to breathing and related to development, it caused me to seek answers for myself. And once you see some of these relationships, both that we're going to talk about today, and then again, when we talk again in September, they're things that you just can't unsee. And they stand out to make me want to learn more and just continue the journey of trying to figure out how to get solutions. So that's kind of what happened for me. And I've got a long history of looking back on things that I've learned, tried, had some successes, but realized that there was another thing. And that has been kind of a never-ending journey for me. But I think that patients and clients and people that are seeking changes in their body performance, they also can relate to once we give them enough time to tell their story.
Mm. Yeah, sure. I mean, so many of them don't. I mean, my demographic will think about the airway, but probably a lot of demographics don't think about that unless or until something goes wrong, and then that's when we both had presentations at the Gathering of Eagles. And I was like, so many of our patients, so many of our clients are professional vocal athletes. They just don't know it yet. And they don't know that what's happening in their body can influence what's happening at the airway, and that there are iterations throughout the body that we could see and how they
Yeah.
influence and potentially mimic each other.
Absolutely. And our bodies are amazing compensators.
Mm.
We adapt to survive. But nobody's telling us, tapping us on the shoulder in the background. Our brains especially aren't tapping us on the shoulder and saying, "Hey, you're adapting. Hey, you're compensating." Earlier in life, we just keep on trucking and we develop skills and habits that sometimes look like strength, but
Mm.
later become a burden. And as our bodies change and as our lives change, these things show up. And I think that because there isn't a specific teacher to teach us whether we are compensating versus doing it with a strength, or doing it something that has efficiency, we don't always account for these things until they show up as a symptom or an overuse syndrome or something that limits our ability to perfect a skill or a goal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So with your presenting and lecturing, you lecture at conferences for physical therapists, for dentists, for a lot of different modalities. You have become known for seeing relationships that many clinicians just don't see or don't connect. So, how did you develop the way of observing the body and the way that you do in your clinic?
Yeah. Um, well, it's true. I think I was uh, gifted with a logical mind and the ability to see patterns emerge for whatever reason.
Mhm.
But in addition to that, I was drawn to a profession that when we're licensed to be physical therapists, and there are other specialties that share a similar circumstance, but our proficiency has to be in kind of the whole body, even though it's taught in pieces and parts. There are very few, say, doctors that you would go to that specialize in, say, ear, nose, and throat disorders that would tell you that they are very proficient at big toe care
Mhm.
and vice versa, right?
Mhm.
But a physical therapist, especially starting out, you enter the clinic with this new job and this boss that wants to fill your schedule. They will throw any diagnosis on your schedule just to make sure that you don't have holes in it and say, figure it out. Even if you're not good at it, you have to kind of rise to the occasion and get good at it. Um, and I became a little disenfranchised by the healthcare industry just because not only does teaching have to kind of break things into individual parts and teach them that way,
Mhm.
but the healthcare system, especially in the US, in terms of how we treat things, is broken into little parts. We don't actually cross regions and start to see how one thing influences the other because it costs more and because it takes more thought process and brain cells, and we have to spend more minutes at it. And, in healthcare time, minutes are money. And so we're actually, I think, kept from being able to use our thinking brains to see
Mhm.
how these relationships formed. But I also had some really good mentors early on that encouraged a process called test retest, in that
Mhm.
you test a circumstance, you get data, you intervene, and you do a retest to see if you changed what you were after. And even in my education as a physical therapist, test retest is also a little bit suppressed for a couple reasons, I believe. Number one, that you have to be kind of vulnerable. That at the end you test your work, and what if it doesn't show the result? Well, now you got to spend time on Plan B, and if you don't have time in your clinic on Plan B, well, then you just exposed a weakness. And so it's always easier for somebody to come back on Tuesday, and you might do some other things and progress them. But it's easier to not test your work than it is to test your work. So, that's one thing. And the other thing is that we don't always objectively test everything we do. But the way my brain works is I need to see the data in order to make a decision. I'm not really willing to guess or say, hey, this is supposed to be good for you. Let's try it. So everything that I've done in my career has been kind of well documented and referenced to say what worked and what didn't work for this particular client. And that has led me down this path of being able to see bigger pictures and relate ankles to hips and hips to shoulders and shoulders to craniums and craniums to tongues and that sort of thing. And right in the middle of all that is stuff that we're going to talk about in September.
Mhm. Yeah, I have two thoughts on what you had just talked about. The first one is a lot of times when I'm teaching, especially my anatomy module, I just mentioned when we're teaching, we break things down into zip codes. But we do have to come back into the city and back into the state and back into the continent and back into the world when we're talking about the body. And so when you just said that, I was like, yeah, we're breaking things down into zip codes so that we can learn them, so our brain can actually gain that information, but the body doesn't work in isolation in that way.
Yeah. Well, that's an important part, because the second thing that I was going to say was that we also don't learn that we can expect an immediate result. So you strengthen something and it takes practice and reps, and weeks later you might have gained. And um, when we look at the sciences that we're looking at now in terms of how the body is centering for voice, centering for breath, centering for the ability to stabilize posture or position, that a lot of that's done neurologically. And one of the things that I always say is that neuro is there for our safety, and safety can't be slow. If safety is slow, we're not safe. And so when we see an immediate result in a test retest, it's seldom an orthopedic change. When I use the word orthopedic, I'm talking about like stretch, strengthen, joint mobility, subluxation, thrust, those things where providers are imparting a force on the human and expecting a change to happen. But when we're really looking at test retest, one of the things that we learn the most is that if we're influencing the neurologic system in improving the sense of safety, and when that happens, some pretty cool changes show up right in front of us. And at the helm of safety is nourishment, which is coming through as water, food, and air. And those things all travel right through the space that we're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the other thing I was going to mention based on that was just a client experience this week where they were very heavily biased to the right. And I gave them a drill and they were more biased to the right. So I was like, well, let's switch this drill up. Same drill, but just differently, right? And then they were more biased to the right. I was like, also, looking at this person, had I not assessed this person, looking at them, I would have actually thought they were biased left. So my eyes deceived me. And then when I put them on weight plates and I tested, I'm like, okay, so this person's not biased left, they're biased right. So then I finally just switched to a completely different drill, and then they were able to oscillate between the 1 and 2 pounds. And I was like, forget the first thing, we're not doing it, we're coming to this. And so definitely, I think for me in my practice, getting better and better and better at assessments is my goal. I am not phenomenal at them, but I am wanting to get better and better. And it's those moments that are like, wow, first of all, my eyes deceived me. And second of all, I really thought that drill was going to work and then it didn't. And then I thought the second drill was going to work and then it didn't. And then we moved, and luckily this person was very willing to explore and came to me for that reason, because had already experienced some laryngeal work somewhere else. And I was like, well, if laryngeal didn't do anything, then we have to look. And right away, as soon as I had them sing, I was like, I'm very interested in what's happening around the pelvis with the rib cage. I'm interested in what's happening with chamber compression.
Yeah. Well, and that's also a testament to you, because you are also willing to explore, not just your client. There's a lot of dogma in our industry where people, and it happens everywhere. It happens in dentistry. It happens, where we have these camps, and our learning is our learning, and we hold those things as truth and as right. And we start to lose the ability to look outside that same box. And that's something that I'm very opposed to. But your ability to look at the pattern that a person's in between what they're doing, what they feel like they're doing, and what they're capable of doing, there's often a mixture happening there that we have to suspend our dogma and our fixed points of view about what's happening, and use the information that we gather, all of it, whether it be something we're listening to or something that we're physically testing, to confirm our suspicions. We attempt, you're basically talking about test retest. We attempt a solution, and then we retest to see if we got what we wanted. And we might look back and say, wow, that's not what I expected. And we adjust. So that's cool. Kudos to you.
Yeah. Well, had I not retest, Had I not put him back on the plates, and numbers don't lie, which is why I love the plates so much, because it's like, oh, shoot,
Yeah.
you were 16 pounds over and now you're like 23 pounds over.
Mhm.
Shoot, we went the wrong direction. How did this happen? So
But
yeah,
you had to go that way to know to go the other way.
yeah.
We just let that inform the process. And that gets back to your last original question, is like, how does this ability to look at the whole picture with a different lens, how does it exist? Well, it exists with the willingness to be vulnerable, the willingness to test our work, and the willingness to make different decisions on behalf of the client. Uh, and that skill set is something that can be explored and taught, and we just need to be open to it. We need to be able to just identify a couple new things that we might consider in a plan with a client and say, well, let's try this because I'm seeing some things that I maybe didn't have the point of view to look for a week ago or a month ago or whenever it was.
Yeah, I quote one of my colleagues, Dr. Aaron Johnson. He is a speech therapist at NYU Langone, and one of my absolute dear friends and very close colleagues. And I was blown away, and I quote him all the time, so I'm sure I've said it on a different podcast. But I remember having a conversation with him, and he said, because he does research, and I said, "What what do you want with the outcome?" And he said, "I want the outcome to prove me wrong." I was like, oh, I would think if someone had asked me before I had that conversation with him, and if someone had asked anyone else I know, they would have said, "Oh, I want to be proven right." He said, "I want to be proven wrong because then I've learned something." I was like, I am blown away by you right now and by that answer, and I want to live my life by that. Like, I want to be proven wrong so that I learn something. I mean, I don't want to always be proven wrong, but I just think it's an incredible um, uh, allowance of allowing ourselves to just drop the ego, drop all of the dogma, and just say, okay, wow, I've learned something new. And I
Yeah.
think that's what retesting can do too.
Yeah. Well, and it's human nature to kind of align with people or things or topics or concepts that share our position at the moment, even if our position changes. It's even true, like with how we read text and stuff. Oftentimes, I see people highlighting in their text, and they're highlighting the things that affirm what they already know versus highlighting the things that they need to go back to later and say, I need to learn more about this. You know, and especially heavy highlighters, and we do that with our peer groups as well. We're looking for affirming
Mhm.
things. But I have found that, and I'm sure I'm not alone, that in my personal life and in my professional life, that I I grow more, I learn more, I do more when I feel inconvenienced or even a little bit uncomfortable. You know,
Mhm.
uh, more change happens when we feel displaced and we have to step outside of our comfort area, and we stay kind of the same when we feel like we're in our comfortable little bubble. So, yeah, that resonates what you just said.
Yeah, and it's amazing when someone cares about you enough to actually speak a truth that can help you grow in that way.
Yeah.
Because someone could just be like, oh, you know what? Whatever. I'm not going to worry about it. They believe something completely different than me, or not even just on beliefs, but behaviors and everything. And it's like, hey, you know what? It It made me feel like this when can we have a conversation about this? And that's
And
definitely the
and
times in
clients
my personal life where I have grown a lot from the people who have been willing to open up and share like that with me.
Yeah. Yeah, and science is based on this principle that we need to be able to explore things, learn things, and change our point of view so that knowledge and operation can expand, based on the evidence that we currently have in our. It's not a fixed thing. It's something that we're exploring and learning and seeking other people's experiences to try to figure out, hey, do I need to change my viewpoint on this? Otherwise, we stay stagnant, doing the same thing the same way all the time.
Yeah. So you've talked a little bit about how you document, and so your documentation, your soap notes. Was there a patient or some kind of moment in your career that kind of changed how you evaluate people in this way?
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest change that's come through has to do with the ability to do many things and get the same end result. And so for me, the example was that was the highlight for me was is rooted in a test that our industry, the physical therapy industry or movement science industry, has had for years. That's named the Ober test. It's named for an old hip surgeon, I think back in the 1920s or 30s, who decided, and I'm going to grab a model real quick, who decided that if we have somebody on their side and we take, I'm going to get the non-colored section, it's a little easier to look at. We take the hip, and so we're on our side, the knees over this way, and we say, all right, with the hip stacked, laying on the side, facing away from me, if I take your knee and I try to drop it to the table, if it doesn't go down, it's a positive test, and we'll do a lateral release of your IT band, I'll cut it, your knee will then for sure touch the table, and we learned very quickly that that was a bad idea. But the test still carried his name. And over the years, there are a lot of people that have put their 2 cents on why that change happens or what creates that change. So the IT band, the iliotibial band down to the side of the knee from the hip, was first kind of the blame. So of course, naturally, physical therapists and other movement specialists and fitness people will do like foam rolling and stretching, and that tissue goes up to the glute. So they'll stretch that muscle, and the glutes are attached to the crest of the pelvis. So we're going to do some low back stretching and things like that. So there's a lot of things you can do to get that knee to start to drop, including the things that I just mentioned, but some of them are not long lasting. You go walk back away and you come back to the table, you get retested, and you're right back to where you started. But then there was another mentor that showed me, oh, if I just do a manual manipulation technique of the pelvis, now that's going to make it touch the table. So now I said, all right, this is not a soft tissue thing. This is going to be an alignment thing because I just moved the bone and knee touches. Okay, cool. But the same thing happened. They walk around, they come back, they lay on the table, and they're back to where they started. So their body's position obviously went back. So then another mentor said, hey, let's look at what's happening with the core. And so we'll do some core drills. And we did. And of course, I test them, touches the table, walk around. Some of the people, it would stay, and some of the people, it wouldn't. Okay. So let's talk about the next mentor who said, hey, let's look at how the diaphragm ascends. So let's get the diaphragm to ascend better. Sure enough, have them blow up a balloon, and he touches the table. And that person might be able to walk around a room and lay back down and test well, but they couldn't run around the room. All the way up. I mean, this just keeps on going all the way up till I had somebody take a 3x3 gauze and do a tongue manipulation, a tongue stretch, a manual tongue stretch. And that knee touched the table, right? So you can do so many effective things and say, I got it. I got the root cause of this problem, until you learn that there's something upstream that also can do that. So was it really at cause when I did an IT band stretch? Was it really at cause when I did a pelvic lumbar manipulation? Was it really at cause when I did core exercise? No one thing was the thing. The
It's
whole
different for
thing.
each individual that walked into your space.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, the things that make it last the longest are the things that relate more to head, neck, and tongue than were ever about what the pelvic rotation and the leg length difference and the IT band length were doing. So that's that was a moment in time for me when it seemed like there were so many things that I could do that would change the thing that I was testing. Choosing the right thing or the thing that day that got them to leave the clinic and then come back with the change. That's what makes a professional worth their salt. Is that not that somebody can leave testing well? I mean, there are people on YouTube and on social media that will show all of these things where we can drop shoulder internal rotations and make these tests really great. That's easy in a room for somebody to leave with that. But what's harder is for them to come back with that.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think that part of that is because those structures are closer to the brainstem?
I think that for me, my experience is that those structures are more vital for survival. That region is where our executive processing is sensing what's happening. And remember, I use the terminology safety. I mean, we have to make sure that first we're safe, and then second, we can do the thing we wanted to do. But if we put what we want to do before our safety, bad things happen. And the brain, our autonomic nervous system, so you're talking about the brain stem. So the autonomic nervous system in that space is measuring safety at all times, multiple times a second, just making sure in the background that you don't have to think about it. So imagine if you always had to think about how many breaths you took and how many heartbeats you had and how to let go of a muscle so that you can leave the floor with it, so that you can stand on the other foot, center your weight, and then you got to switch sides now. So imagine if you had to think about which muscles to let go of and which muscles to still hold on to so that you didn't fall on your face. Those are things that we are all glad to have working in the background for us. And they come first. They just happen to be measured more specifically and more intensely up here as it relates to our brain, our eyes, our temporal sense, and our vestibular sense in our temporal bones, and then the ability to center this bottleneck right here. And what comes through that bottleneck are three really important tubes that are vital.
Yeah.
Our windpipe, our esophagus, and our spine. Everything else we have in that space is redundant. And I get to show lots of things when we get to talk again at the course.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I cannot wait. So what do you think are some of the most or the biggest misconceptions that people have about posture and about body organization?
Yeah, I love this question because I'm kind of passionate about it, but and I don't think I'm alone in thinking this. But I would say the biggest misconception is that posture or biomechanics is one correct thing, right? Posture and biomechanics are dynamic. They have to be able to adapt and move. And so what I would say is that in posture and in biomechanics, what we're looking for is not right, wrong, good, bad. We're looking at efficient. What creates the least amount of burden for the body to complete a task? And while it's there doing that task, maintain neurologic safety. If you can put that together in a package of exercises, that just the safety sense alone will change your body's posture. And lack of safety, lack of sense of ability to protect the brainstem, protect the airway, those three tubes, lack of ability to do that will alter a posture. And again, in the very beginning, I was talking about my own personal journey. I'm a posture therapist, right? It's in my credentials, but I'm a guy that's got a forward head posture. I just happen to have developmentally things that cause me to have some oral surgeries that made my space smaller. So my head has to go forward enough to make up for the lost airway space that my dental procedure took from me. So when I was in PT school learning about postural concepts and shoulder squeezes and T's and Y's and chin tucks, and every posture therapist that is orthopedically trained is going to say, all right, time to do some cervical retrusions. You got to get your ears over your shoulder. Well, when I do that, it confines my airway space. I can't swallow. I can't breathe. My brain says, heck no, you can't stay there. You can do that exercise, but you can't stay there. And so I've had to find other strategies to improve that sense and make things better for me, and which includes being in adult orthodontia. I'm in clear aligners right now, making more space for me to be able to breathe. And that came after a lot of discovery. It came after a lot of making changes in my body and relating to that airway space that confirmed to me that I was on the right path. And so yeah, so this is gonna be my third round. I did 2 when I was a kid, and now here I am 50 years old doing it again. But
Well, actually, I think that that might be helpful to some of the listeners because I have a number of clients come in and it is shocking to their nervous system when they have gone to the dentist and they're like, I think we need to help your airway out. I think we need to go through this or that. And they're like, I already went through that as a kid. Like, really? I have to go through this again? And I'm like, well, let's see if we can do other things first. Let's see if what can we do with the body? What can we do with some manual work? What can we do with some myofunctional drills? What can we do to support? Because either way, we could use those things to support anything that a dentist might be adding to. Um, but it is a challenge, I think, for a lot of my clients to, become an adult and then hear that they might need some more intervention.
yeah. Yeah, and I think that as it relates to, people hearing from, say, their dentist that we need to change this space, that's where a lot of the stuff that a movement specialist that studies whole body postural stuff, because we can look for the relationships that happen around the space, dental wise, tongue wise, voice box, and breathing wise. All of that space is shared. It's not owned by one specialty. And it has to relate to all of the specialties. But one of the cool things about the system of tests that I currently use, which is adapted and informed by the Applied Integration Academy's spectrum of patterns, that we get to look at the relationships that we're making when we do things from the ground up, which you mentioned, grounding plates and changing the drill that a client uses to help change the way they project or the way they're performing. We can also do it from a descending point of view. What happens when we change this space down? Does something show us an objective result that you can see, you can feel, and you can carry home with you? And sometimes it does include a dental concept, a dental device, or a dental procedure. I think moving your teeth at 50 is on the far end. It's not a hey, we start here. It's hey, if we have enough data that suggests that we can change the system, if we do that, would we choose it? And then we use shared decision making with clients to make sure that it's something that they want. Or if not, how do we work around the dilemma that is holding up their progress with whatever tools? And sometimes it's just a bite. It's just a bite guard or something that they're getting that's very highly customized. It's not just a bite guard, but it's very highly customized that just interrupts their body's pattern to allow the body and your programming to make a different choice and then move the needle.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So with the dentists and physical therapists and speech therapists and all of these people that attend conferences, how or what is the biggest takeaway? I guess I'll ask of these professionals. What have they learned from one another? Because being able to collaborate with these other professionals is really important. I have my ideas of what some of us have learned, but I would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can only speak from my personal experience, but all of us have our specialties and our areas of influence, but they're all kind of separate. We talked a little bit about that. And that I think what interdisciplinary providers learn is that we all need each other and we all support each other in the change in the human form, because it's all connected. And so for me, the best outcomes have come because I work in osteopathic offices with DOs that do cranial, osteopathic manipulative medicine. I work in dental offices, and often these osteopaths and these dentists know and work together.
Which is
And
so brilliant.
yeah,
Please, if
so
you're a dentist or an
yeah,
osteopath or a manual therapist, work together.
yeah. And what I would tell you that the providers that I work with now, we do it all together. We might not always do it in the same room, but we try to when we can. So like yesterday, I was across state in Flint, Michigan, at a dental office, sitting in the dentist chair, working alongside the dentist to make sure that things were where they needed to be from the body perspective from the ground up, so that we can be very accurately equilibrating their dental delivery, their dental appliance or their teeth. And so that happens. Then I'll be in an osteopath's office who's doing osteopathic manipulative techniques, if they're doing it, or even if I'm doing some osteopathic styled cranial sutural integration concept, that as we're making those changes, their dentition might change, their occlusion might change, and their splint or their teeth or their exercise might need to be adjusted to accommodate that change. And so from the ground up and from the cranium down, when we are as movement specialists and cranial specialists and dental airway specialists all in the same room, that's when the magic really happens for patients. And when we have to do it separate from each other, the patient has to move, all around. So what these providers learn is that it takes a village. Like we're working together on behalf of the outcome, the shared goals that the patient has with our care and our skill set.
Yeah, which I think means a lot to when a client knows or a patient knows that their team is talking to each other and working with each other, they feel cared for. And as we've been talking about this whole time, so much about our care is about how our nervous system feels safety. So, if we're able to provide care in collaboration and communication behind the scenes and in front of this amazing individual that's in front of us, then they're hopefully able to get better quicker, heal faster, whatever it might be, because they're able to feel like they are being heard and seen and cared for.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
It's harder work though. I
yeah.
mean, there's a lot of travel, there's a lot of, communication behind the scenes and that sort of thing. But that's what also makes patients feel safer. They think that they know that they're in good hands for the same reason that you just mentioned. So they finally found their people that are driven to help them change versus offer them a med or offer them a surgery. Not to say that those things aren't necessary sometimes, but when we start there, sometimes we miss the more human part of the story.
Mhm. So when you're talking in various spaces, what do you feel like are kind of like the biggest or like is the biggest or some of the biggest light bulb moments that people have when because I should say, okay, to the listeners, when Craig is in a class and we have a break, I don't even know if Craig gets to go to the restroom or get water because one person asks a question and then literally within 30 seconds there is a group around Craig to hear the answer. So so obviously there are a ton of light bulb moments that go off for a lot of people anytime they have the amazing opportunity of sharing space with you. But what do you feel people kind of have those light bulb moments for in whatever your discussion or your work?
I can tell you what I'm told,
Okay.
is that so I don't think that the science that we're in, it's already complicated. But I don't think it needs to sound complicated. It doesn't have to have big words, big names. Anatomically, biomechanically, like none of that really matters. What matters is that we see something, we impart a change, and that we can explain the change that we created. And so I find that what I hear from people that are in attendance of something, a presentation that I've done, or even if I'm just a participant and we get a chance to have open discussion, is that I tend to break things down into simpler terms that are easier to hear, easier to listen to, and easier to integrate into your space. Because I mean, imagine telling a dentist that they need to understand mechanics of the hip, sacrum, and pelvis, or arches of the feet, or things like that. They're like, how am I ever going to integrate this on Monday morning when I get back to my office in the dental chair? So I think one of the take homes or the ahas that happens for the participants that I'm around is that we try to simplify and connect dots. And we don't have to be experts in the entire human systems to understand that we can make a meaningful impact with the tools that we have. We just need to know what they look like and how to identify it. And so that's where that objectivity comes. And the other thing that I thought about when you asked me this question was that, and I've heard this countless times, that, when we get done with our formal trainings and whatever we're great at, whatever we studied, that it's been told that once we're done with all of that education, half of what we learned is going to end
Was
up
wrong.
being wrong. And the
Yeah.
problem is that we don't know which half.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's where I don't like to guess on anything. I'm a very literal, very objective thinker, and I like to put data together in a way that makes me feel confident. And I think the way I teach also instills that confidence in other humans because they don't have to take somebody's word for it. They can measure it, they can see it, they can retest it and notice if it changed or didn't. And just like you, alter your plan based on what you noticed. And that's a gift. That creates ease when it comes to walking away from a course and being able to try to adapt it into, Monday's clientele.
I
How
think
many
that
of us have
really
left a
is.
course? How many of us have left a course and on Monday we feel like idiots? We're like, I'm slower at what I used to do because I'm sitting here thinking about what I'm trying to do, and I don't do either thing well for days because I feel like I'm spinning. So I try very hard to make everything I talk about useful.
Yeah,
And
that is
and
100%
and
true.
not way up here in the clouds, like down
Yeah.
at a space where we can talk about it.
Yeah. Yes, that is definitely how we often leave classes. Also, that is a gift. It is a gift of being able to simplify the complex. It's a not a gift that I possess, but I'm trying to get better at it. So it's a work in progress, but you are
A-
very good at that.
Yeah, and we both know that simplifying the complex is the AIA moniker, and they're doing a phenomenal job at bringing pieces of the puzzle to providers, interdisciplinary providers. It's one of the reasons why I'm part of that organization, is because they truly have a passion for teaching interdisciplinary integration. And that's what has been able to allow me to treat the patients that I have, is because of that interdisciplinary education. And so that's why I partner with AIA and talk a lot about what they teach and what they do.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And we've had a number of AIA faculty on the podcast. Mike Cantrell and Alice Lamb have come on, and you,
Yeah.
and
And
hopefully
that's how
more
that's
in the
how you and
future.
I met. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
we first met in my office here in Zealand at
Yes.
a vision course. Go figure. Somebody who's passionate about voice is going to a vision course in Zealand, Michigan. So I'm so glad that I got a chance to meet you there, and I have seen you a number of times along the way after that.
Yeah, I know. It's been so incredible. And I was just about to say, Heidi Wise, I am trying to get her. I really want to talk to
Yeah,
her about vision on my podcast.
yeah.
Um, so if there was one thing that you would, because we have a lot of voice teachers and speech therapists who are hopefully listening, um, if there's one thing that you would want them to understand about the body under the voice before their next lesson, what would it be?
Well, I don't think it's exclusive to voice teachers. I know that your audience is going to be very much voice teachers, but we're all teachers in our own right. And I think that it's important for teachers to know that we have to take people through the levels of conscious or competence. That if we start with unconscious incompetence, somebody has no idea that something's going on in a way that they don't really desire. Whether it's affecting their symptoms or affecting their performance doesn't matter. They just don't have a clue. And then all of a sudden they meet people like us that we say, "Hey, did you know?" And we point it out. And we have this realization. We have conscious incompetence, right? So we went from unconscious incompetence to conscious incompetence, but that doesn't solve anybody's problems. It just creates frustration. And then we say, "All right, let's do these drills. Let's do these things." We have this conscious competence. The right thing starts to happen, the desired thing starts to happen, but we have to think about it to make it happen. And that's not really where we want to end up either. We need to take people to this unconscious competence. And the only way that unconscious competence happens is when the body feels safe in entering that space. And so I just really want everybody to know that when humans just impart their will over the human form and over the human function and say, try harder, do this thing, do lots of reps. If the human that you're working with is pushing back, or if it increases that tension, that sympathetic drive, the things that make you feel like, wait a second, this is not changing, there may be some other underlying factors as it relates to nourishment, as it relates to safety, as it relates to emotional or nutritional states. There's just always a bigger picture that our humans bring to our spaces, and that we can't just do reps and sets and expect everything to just flow, especially when we want it to happen freely and unconsciously.
Mm-hmm. I love that you just said that because with that same client that I was working with yesterday, I told I told them the same thing of bringing them
Yep.
through, and I was like, and to another client as well, because um, this person had come in saying, oh, I haven't been, I kind of burned out and haven't been doing my drills, and but I reached a point of, and I'm like, hang on, you still have grown. You still have worked for it because you went from unconscious incompetence to conscious. And that's huge. That's a big step. Only it feels messy and chaotic. So
Yeah.
now let's try to cross you over into this other realm and, you know, get you
Bet.
get you to conscious unconscious competence. So I love that you just brought that up. So on September 2nd, you are coming, and I'm so excited. You're coming as a guest presenter for the Visceral Voice Academy to teach a workshop called Reading the Ribcage Through the Palate. Listeners, please sign up for this class. Craig, when he starts talking about what you can see in the palate and the rib cage and the connection between the two, of everything that I have learned, and this says a lot because I love learning and I have a lot of incredible mentors, but of so many of the connections that I have heard, this has been an incredibly profound one for me, especially with my history, as Craig knows, with pectus and with tori. It's unbelievable. So anyway, I'm going to say that. Please sign up for this class. You will not want to miss this class. Reading the Ribcage Through the Palate. But if someone comes to the workshop, Craig, knowing almost nothing about biomechanics, what can they expect to walk away with after taking this class?
Well, so rest assured, you don't have to have an advanced degree in anatomy and physiology and biomechanics and stuff like that. So we're going to be talking about snowmen and beach balls. We're going to be talking about vacuum cleaners and plants. We're going to be, like I said before, bringing it down to digestible language, digestible things that we can see, so that we can just connect dots and establish relationships that happen to be informed by the way we develop our ability to first breathe and then move and then crawl and then walk and then jump, kick soccer balls, dance and sing. There's just so many things that need to get taken out of our own way, obstacles that we have in the way of ourselves during our growth and development that are easy to see once you know what they look like, but they don't have to be biomechanically discussed. They can be physiologically real life conversations. And so connecting those dots and letting you see what it looks like, and even see it in yourself or in loved ones or in clients of yours. Once you see it, you can't unsee it.
You can't unsee it. Why do you think this is an important conversation or topic for voice professionals?
Well, if you think about, first I'm going to say it's never one thing. It doesn't matter what somebody comes with. It's never going to be one thing that needs to be fixed or solved. It's always a combination or a spectrum of things that are all influencing each other. But the space that I'm the most passionate about and the space that I work most closely in is related to what's happening in the thoracic cage, rib cage, lungs, heart, neck, jaw, and skull. I am definitely interested in what's happening below all that, but realize that the ability to breathe was the first thing we ever did, and it's the last thing we'll ever do. And the ability to meter air through vocal folds, actuating that air with our trunk and our core, and vibrating through length and tension and muscular control and posture, all of that stuff is going to affect the outcome in your space as voice coaches or people that are interested. So in my space, just so I put it out there, I am not somebody that sings. I am not somebody that even would claim to be an expert in phonation in any way. I study the things that in the background are altering somebody's ability to excel at that skill. And so when we look at what could we see or do or change that we maybe hadn't considered yet, that would improve your ability to be the expert you are, not the expert I am. Does that make sense? And so that's where I really think that I can impart some wisdom to somebody who's specifically interested in voice, because the air has to travel. It's a shared tube. And when people are performing, it doesn't mean they get to stop living, right? And I'll tell you that it's a dumb dad joke, but when somebody asks me, what do you do for a living? I breathe. It's the only way I can do it, right? If I stop that, it's over. So
that's so funny. I love that answer.
Yeah.
Because everyone hates that question.
I hate that question. Absolutely. But that's how I answer it. And then nobody gets it. Well, you get it, but
I get it.
nobody else gets it. So, but
I
really,
think the listeners will get it too.
yeah, we spend the first part of our life trying to defy gravity, figuring out how to get up onto our feet. And then we spend the rest of our life trying not to fall back down. And eventually we do. We all know how the story ends, right? So in the middle of all that is overcoming gravity and making sure that nourishment through this tube is always safe and sustainable and efficient. And for some of us, forward head people, it's not as efficient as we want it to be. For some people, we have like you said with one client, what you expected to be a right bias. For some people, we have a left bias. But no matter what we do, we're kinking the hose because there's only one of those tubes and there's only one of these necks. And the requirements to not fall on your face and the requirements to take an efficient breath, they supersede the ability to properly control voice. And then you're going to get on stage or sing in the shower, wherever you're going to do it, you're going to do it the way you do it. And maybe there's some things in the background that we can change to make it feel more at ease.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Which is what the artists want so that they can actually do the performance. They can mean the words. They can be present in their performance instead of drawn out because of something else that's, happening in their body or in their voice.
And everybody knows when it feels hard versus
Yeah.
when it feels easier.
Yeah, absolutely. So if someone's on the fence for taking this workshop, which you shouldn't be on the fence because it's so amazing, what's one thing that they will never look at the same?
Oh, gosh. So I should just throw this one back at you. Can you answer your own question?
I can't answer the wrong. When you hear how Craig describes looking at the palate and seeing the rib cage, you can't unsee it. I can literally close my eyes and I have an image in my mind of my own rib cage, of my own, of other people's, what they're like being. It's unbelievable. I've never felt so. There are a lot of connections in the body that I'm like, it's so amazing. But this one resonates with me so deeply. And I think it'll resonate with singers and voice professionals so deeply. And I think it'll create a lot of aha moments for people of like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense of what is going on from that person's mouth or that person's teeth and what I'm seeing in the rib cage, or why that might be challenging for someone, or why that might be easier for someone, or whatever it might be. So hopefully that answers it. It's unbelievable.
And when you start inviting podiatrists to these courses, we can start talking about what it looks like down in the arches of the feet.
Yes. Yes, which you and I have had a brief conversation about. When you mentioned that, I was like, dang it, Craig, you just dropped another mic at me. Oh my gosh.
It's never one thing.
It's never one thing. It's incredible. Okay. So listeners, on September 2nd, Craig is coming to teach reading the ribcage through the palate at noon Eastern time. You can find that on the Visceral Voice website under guest presenters, and it's going to be an amazing hour. I know I have met with Craig virtually. I've talked with him at courses. We've had many a conversation, and I learn new things every single time we talk about this. So I know that you will learn a lot, and there will be a lot of aha moments and light bulb moments and things that you will take away. So I hope that you join us then. So Craig, to kind of cap off the episode, I would love to go back to something I did season 1, which is rapid fire questions.
Got it.
I haven't done them in a long time. So I'm just going to ask a question. You're going to throw out the first thing that comes to mind, and we'll see where we end up. Okay.
Here we go.
You ready? Okay.
I think so.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee before noon, tea after noon.
Ooh, okay. Most underrated anatomy book?
Oh gosh, everybody knows Gray's and Netter, but those are good. But I like Rowan because there's real pictures of real things.
Rowan. Awesome. A clinician everyone should learn from.
Oh, that's hard to pin me down on that one. I think we need to instead think about a clinician. We think about mentorships. Mentors are people that are not claiming to know everything and are still willing to ask more questions.
I love that answer. Mentorships, because you're 101. Biggest myth in biomechanics.
Well, we kind of covered it. Posture and biomechanics aren't one thing. They are dynamic.
Mm-hmm. Something you've changed your mind about in the last 5 years.
Oh, I would say where to start. As a PT and as an orthopedic-minded person coming out of school, we start from the ground up. We look at imparting positional change on the body and expect good things to happen. But I actually start descending now. We start looking at senses, tongue, airway, vision, and starting there speeds it up.
Mm-hmm. It's incredible. I've always done top down until recently,
Lucky
and I
you.
started playing with
I
the
had to
feet.
take years to figure that out. You're already there.
I just started playing with the feet like this last year, and I'm amazed by what the feet do for the voice. So it's fun. We're meeting in the middle. One concept you wish everyone understood sooner.
Oh gosh. Well, I talk a lot about development. Let me start over. I talk a lot about developmental milestones. That if earlier we could catch kiddos with things that might change their outcome and cause inefficiencies later in life, if we can treat children earlier, it would change the world.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Best piece of advice you've ever received?
To be a good father, you have to be a good husband.
Oh, I love that. Luckily, my husband is great at both.
My buddy Joe told me that.
Oh,
It had a couple more words to it because it was like, to be a good father to a daughter, you have to be a good husband to your wife. But I think it's all inclusive.
yeah. Amazing. Craig, thank you so much for coming and spending this hour chatting with me here on the podcast, and for coming September 2nd to teach us all about reading the ribcage through the palate. I cannot wait. I'm so excited to get this information out to more of the voice world and help them see this connection that you've been seeing for a while and you've been talking about for a while, and anything that I can do to help you get that word out, I'm so willing to do. I believe in you and I believe in your work, and you have inspired me in so many ways. I think your work is inspiring. From the moment I met you at the vision course, I knew that you were a kindred spirit in the voice world. Even though you are not a singer, you know so much about the larynx and the airway and everything, that the whole stomatic gnathic system that we are working with as speech therapists and voice teachers, and certainly even in my profession with manual therapy. So thank you so much, truly, from the bottom of my heart, for coming and having this conversation with me.
Well, thanks to you as well. Your trust and your passion and your friendship are palpable. So I appreciate everything you're doing.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thanks for tuning in to the Visceral Voice Podcast. If this conversation resonated with you, please subscribe. It's free and it helps us keep sharing meaningful content. A quick rating or review also makes a huge difference. Share this episode with your colleagues, students, and friends. Join us on social and visit www.thevisceralvoice.com to explore programs and upcoming events. I hope you'll join us next time for another inspiring conversation on The Visceral Voice.